Hey everybody, welcome to JD Does Dev. I'm JD and this is part 4 of the Doxel training series. In this video we're going to be talking about Doxel services. Now Doxel services are divided into two groups, project and system. Now project services are services that are defined and run at the project level. This means you can have multiple instances of a web or CLI service running at the same time for different projects. For example, we may be working on a Drupal site for a client who uses Pantheon for hosting. In that case, we'd want our web service to run Nginx. However, if a ticket came in for another client who uses Acquia, that needs to go on Apache. We could stop the Pantheon web service, change it over to Apache, restart it, and direct our Acquia project to that web service. But instead, we can have a project service for each and have an Nginx running for the Pantheon project and Apache running for the Acquia project. We can also make sure that if the client on a Pantheon is using PHP 7.3 and the client on Acquia is using PHP 7.4, we don't have to switch that around either. They each have their own CLI container. Now, system services are services that are shared between all projects. These include the SSH agent, the DNS server, and the reverse proxy service. These are all available to every project, and every project uses them. Now let's take a look at these services. Project services can be configured on a per project basis. The default stack contains these project services: CLI, DB, and web. Now, the default CLI service runs Supervisor D. This is a client-server system that Doxel uses to control processes on the service. For CLI, these processes are the daemons: PHP FPM, which we use for running our PHP script, cron D, which executes scheduled commands, and SSHD, which is used to allow SSH connections. It uses the Doxel CLI 2.11-PHP 7.3 image out of the box, which contains PHP 7.3, Composer, Drush, Drupal console, WP CLI for WordPress, Terminus, and Platform for Platform SH. Along with many more, it also has Node.js, Ruby, Python, and MSMTP, which is a mail server. These inclusions are useful for having some of the most commonly used languages and compilers or interpreters used in web application development. DB is the default database service. This runs the MySQL D daemon. This allows connections to the database layer and separates the database layer from the CLI layer to simulate a real hosting environment. It uses the Doxel MySQL 5.6-1.5 image out of the box, which is useful for MySQL 5.6. Now, the default web service runs Apache Server 2.4. This is responsible for maintaining a web connection and allowing you to connect your browser to your application. It uses the Doxel Apache 2.4-2.3 image out of the box. Now, system services are a little bit different. System services are shared across all Doxel projects. They're reused for a lot of the functionality that makes Doxel work without having to maintain multiple installs of the same software. The default system services are Doxel DNS, which is the service that's responsible for allowing your projects to use custom domain names. It defaults to using the domain projectname.doxel, where project name is the root folder of your project. So for example, if your project lived at users/me/projects/cats, the domain you would access is cats.doxel. It does rely on an internet connection. Another service it uses is the Doxel SSH Agent. This service allows you to use your host machine's SSH keys within your projects. This is really handy for pulling databases from hosting providers or using git commands within the container. Without this, you would have to add a key to the container every time you spun it up. Make sure that it matches the keys on whatever external services you use that require SSH authentication. Now, the third one is the Doxel vhost proxy. This service allows multiple domain names to be routed to the appropriate containers. This allows us to have several projects running, each with the custom domain, and have them routed to the correct web service based on that host name. In addition, we have networking, shared volumes, and other functionality that we'll cover later as part of the system services. Now, in summary, Project and system services allow our projects to remain separate from each other, but to share quite a bit under the hood functionality across the board. Project services are spun up on a per project level, where system services are running at all times and used by all projects. Next up, we're going to look at some of the starter kits that are available with Doxel. Thanks for watching. This has been JD Does Dev, and I'm JD. If you don't mind, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button down below. And if you have any questions or any suggestions on future videos, go ahead and leave them in the comments. Thanks again.